That would make it great for IndyCar. He's been a bit greedy this year.
Right.
So I think it would only be fair that maybe he takes his lovely wife on vacation, Portland weekend, and just decides to show up for Laguna.
I think a great way to kick off this interview, frankly, will you pull that Stag up one more time? Scott Dixon, winner of the Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Everybody likes this beer. It's good beer.
It's not a good beer because that's the beer my dad would put in the outdoor fridge when he knew me and my boys were coming. It was 99 cents a six-pack. Stag and Stag Light.
You're dating yourself, Kenny.
I think it tastes good.
There it is.
Yeah. Again, I drink for effect.
Yeah. Don't we all?
For effect.
Is there ever a time you grab a beer and go, my God, that's as good as chocolate cake?
No.
Mm-mm.
No. A good beer does taste good. Long hot day. Right now.
Yes.
Tastes good.
All right.
Champagne was good.
Can you, without
yes,
giving...
you were drinking some of that champagne. You were the only one, though, on the podium.
I think all those other guys are underage, though, So.
David's about as close as it comes, yes.
Yeah. Hey, Dixon, without giving up the secret, how do you manage fuel so well to where you're in street clothes by the time this race is finished because you've already done everything? It's bonkers.
Yeah, that was a crazy day. I think Ross was probably the key. He was talking about a lot. The same kind of situation that we had at Indy as well. I think the compromise this weekend. We qualified 6th or 7th, but then had the penalty to start, or are we 16th or something, that we kind of needed to try something different, to put us in a good situation. So there was definitely times through the races where I think I was keen to not stay on the strategy. I was kind of pretty verbal about, the car doesn't feel that great. We don't seem that fast, but, they were like, hey, your pace is really good. You're stretching the windows 10 laps, maybe even, I think even on the first stop, we were maybe 6-8 laps longer than some of the other competitors. So, once that starts to snowball, you're going to eliminate the stop. And that's exactly what happened. I think the compromise this weekend is not really knowing about, the alternate tires, how that's going to work. We had really no practice. We weren't sure how that was going to play out. But for us, the pace was really good on those as well. And we were able to get the full stint that we needed to capture that lead and then really control the race, I think, from that point.
Crasher, I know you want to get in there, but for the lay person, my feet are in the car. What are you doing with the throttle, and where are you doing that to save gas? Or is it all up on the steering wheel, depending on this little...
Yeah, we have I wouldn't say any of it's automated. Like, we have a lot of tools. There's mixtures that we can use, in the car and ignition settings as well that kind of help with the performance of the car, so you don't get compromised too much on actual straight line speed. But it really improves, the mileage of the car. But to drive, your say into, turn one, you're going from 6th gear down to 3rd gear, but, you kind of want to lift just after start finish, leave it in 6th gear until you get to almost the apex. So you're not over slowing the car. Once you go down gears, it's like another brake. So you kind of want to get to, the apex of the corner and then go down the 3 gears as quick as possible, but you coast in all that way. And, when in the coast phase, especially with these engines, the same with the other competitors too, but it kind of cuts off the fuel flow to the engine. And it's the same going into 3, but not as dramatic. So there's definitely a style that you need to, implement, but also you really need a car that's capable of doing it, where you have a strong enough front end where you can kind of carry all that speed in on entry without any brakes, keep the pressure on the front and get the rotation out of it. So it's a technique, but also, you got to have a car that's able to do it.
Thank you, Honda. I want to go back to you potentially arguing with Ross, or whether it was Chip or whoever it was, about the strategy, in that if you're the driver, you're the one in the cockpit, you're the one that's going to basically putting your life in danger. And if you're not comfortable, how did they convince you otherwise?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a moment. I think we got stuck behind Carpenter, maybe. The 28 had cleared him. There was a bit of a kind of a melee that went on in turn 1 and 2, and I didn't clear him, so I was kind of stuck behind him. And it was when we were also on the reds, and I'm like, the alternate tire's not feeling that good right now. But they were like, well, let's go to 4%, full percent or full mixture to get the most, performance out of the engine and try and pass him. And I'm like, I can't. Every time I'm trying to get close to him, I feel like I'm really saturating the tire, hurting the tire, and I think it's going to compromise us, at the end of the stint. So there was a lot of that going on. You could hear, a lot of the time the deflation in their voice, like, oh, okay, like we can't do anything. And I can just imagine Chip right next to Mike saying, come on, you got to tell him to pass him. He's got to pass him. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying here, but it's just not going to work. So luckily, I think 10 laps later, he had to pit anyway, and that kind of opened us up to run the leader pace that we needed to. And then before we knew it, we were actually running kind of quicker than the leaders, on a lot more laps on red tires than anybody had done. So it was at that point, I think we'd kind of worked out that we were in a pretty good situation.
Do you feel like you have an advantage because of your talents in the cockpit when the track is relatively green, like it was this weekend, that you have an advantage over so many other people in the field because you are a guy that likes to kind of fly by your seat of the pants?
I think, sometimes it's the starting position, right? We were compromised from the start. I think had we started, maybe in our 7th position or wherever we qualified, it might have been a different race for us. And that may be true for Indy last week as well. So you're kind of looking at, a lot of the strategies. It'd been a long time since somebody had won with a 3-stopper here. So we're like, that might work. And there was the same at Indy last week. We're like, it's been a long time. I think it was maybe... I think Graham tried it maybe several years earlier at Indy as well on the road course, or 7 races earlier, and it was close, but actually we ended up beating him on a 3-stopper. So it's credit to the team. I think today was really about discipline and sticking to that strategy. Yeah.
Wow, Scott Dixon, 6 championships in, going for a 7th. And I'm probably reading between the lines here, but it sounds like you're racing yourself and the Ganassi team, and what the other people do is kind of their business.
Yeah, I think what's really cool, after this weekend is that it's really only a Ganassi driver that can win the championship. I know. Obviously, I'd much rather be in Palou's shoes right now and have that 74-point advantage. But you got to hand it to them for the season that they've had. They've done a tremendous job, and weekends where they've maybe struggled or haven't had the speed, they've been able to really work it out on strategy. So. For us, we were trying to play probably a lot of catch up and really try and close that gap, throughout. And we had some races, I think, where we could have really turned the season around a little bit earlier, but it's come a little bit late. But Chip at the end of the meeting today in the race meeting was like, I'm going to get really mad if all 4 of our cars are on the same strategy at the end of the race. So, that was true for Indy as well, So I think it's a lot of times, when Chip says things, you're like, I'm not sure that's really valid, but, come to the end of the day, it obviously plays true. So, it's kind of fun that he puts those tidbits in there to make everybody really think about. Everybody has... In our team meeting, when there's 4 of us, everybody has an opportunity to win the race. Anybody can find that perfect strategy, no matter where you're starting. And he brings that up a lot. And obviously today was one of those days.
Scott Dixon, that's a spectacular answer, but not an answer to I asked you. So we're going to go on, and you don't want to answer that, I suppose. There were several years ago when you got to Sonoma. I think it was the last race of the year, and you were, gobbling people down 50 points a race. And it sounds like you're going to do that again, or at least you're trying to do that again this year.
Yeah, I think it'd be really special if Palou decided to sit out Portland. That would make it great for IndyCar. He's been a bit greedy this year. Right. So I think it would only be fair that maybe he takes his lovely wife on vacation, Portland weekend, and just, decides to show up for Laguna.
It's a holiday weekend. Might as well.
Yeah, let's do it.
Labor Day.
I don't believe a damn thing that you're saying, man. You're going in there, guns out, and blazing. Dixon.
Hey, we'll be trying whatever. We'll be doing whatever we can to win the last 2 races, but we need a little bit of help. That's for sure.
Are you that vicious to where if it comes down to the last race, last couple of laps, that you have to pull something a little dirty?
Whatever it takes, man. Yeah,
It's a championship.
I think that's
Kenny.
true for 90% of the people on the grid, man.
Let's just be honest.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic, man. It's never disappointment when Scott Dixon rolls in the Freak Nation, man. I can't say it enough. It's just so badass. And the stat man right there on your screen has been on your bandwagon from the get-go. We forget about picking Scott Dixon with our Freaks picks, and
nobody picked me today.
Oh, Statman did.
Statman.
There you go. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
List, dude.
That's good.
And he tells us all the time, never leave out Dixon.
yeah. Scott, as always, thanks, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good to see you guys.